They used to call me the Hammer, not because I was cruel or brutal, but because in the courtroom, I could drive a point home with absolute precision. 35 years as a criminal defense attorney in Miami, and I never lost my edge. I defended everyone from corporate executives to street kids who'd made one bad choice. The prosecution feared me, judges respected me, and my closing arguments? They said I could make a jury see reason through concrete walls. But my grandson Tyler didn't know any of that. He sat across from me in Dr. Anderson's waiting room, his girlfriend Amber pressed against his side, and they both wore the same expression I'd seen on prosecutors who thought they had me cornered. Smug, confident, already counting their victory. I adjusted my reading glasses and went back to my crossword puzzle. Let them think I was just a confused old woman who couldn't remember where she'd put her car keys. Let them think the woman who'd shredded arguments from the state's best attorneys was now someone who needed supervision to buy groceries. "Grandma," Tyler said, his voice dripping with false concern, "are you nervous?" I looked up at him. 26 years old. My daughter Sarah's only child. I'd paid for his college tuition, bought him his first car, and when his mother died 3 years ago from breast cancer, I'd been the one holding him while he sobbed into my shoulder. Nervous? No, sweetheart. Just trying to remember if 7 down is litigation or legislature. I tapped my pen against the newspaper. The clue is Attorney's Battleground. What do you think? Amber leaned forward, her perfectly contoured face arranged in what she probably thought was compassion. "Oh, that's so hard, Mrs. Morrison. Don't worry if you can't get it. Crosswords are tricky." I smiled at her. She'd been dating Tyler for 8 months, and I'd known something was wrong from the first Sunday dinner. The way she'd asked pointed questions about my daily routine. How she'd suggested so sweetly that maybe I should consider simplifying my life and moving into a senior community. The way she'd exchanged glances with Tyler every time I paused to think or asked someone to repeat themselves. They thought I was losing it. They needed me to be losing it. Because 6 months ago, my husband Robert had died, leaving me as the sole trustee of the family trust. $3 million that I'd planned to give to Tyler when he turned 30. But the trust had a provision if I was declared mentally incompetent, the successor trustee would take over immediately. The successor trustee was Tyler. "Litigation," I said, filling in the squares. "Definitely litigation." The receptionist called my name, Dr. Sharon Anderson, psychiatrist, specializing in geriatric mental health assessments. Tyler had made the appointment, claiming he was worried about me. Said I'd been forgetting things, getting confused, acting not like myself. All lies. But convincing lies. We filed into the office. Dr. Anderson was younger than I expected, maybe 45, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She gestured for me to sit in the chair facing her desk while Tyler and Amber took the couch behind me. "Mrs. Morrison, thank you for coming in today. Call me Catherine, or Kate, if you prefer." I set my purse beside my chair, noting the small camera Amber had positioned on her lap, probably recording. "Though I have to say, Doctor, I'm not entirely sure why I'm here." Dr. Anderson glanced at Tyler. "Your grandson expressed some concerns about your memory and daily functioning. We're just going to have a conversation, ask some questions. Nothing to worry about." "I see." I folded my hands in my lap, the same gesture I used to make before cross-examining a hostile witness. Well, I'm an open book. The evaluation started simply. "What year is it? Who's the president? Can you count backwards from 100 by sevens?" I answered each question perfectly, watching Dr. Anderson's expression shift from professional neutrality to mild surprise. Tyler shifted behind me. I could feel his tension. "Now," Dr. Anderson said, "I'd like to ask about your daily routine. Can you walk me through a typical day?" "Of course. I wake up around 6:30, make coffee, I grind my own beans, a habit from my attorney days when I needed that first cup to be perfect. I read the Miami Herald with breakfast, do the crossword, check my emails. Tuesdays and Thursdays I volunteer at the legal aid clinic downtown, helping low-income defendants navigate the system. Wednesdays I have book club, Fridays I swim laps at the community center. Evenings I might read, watch Jeopardy, or work in my garden. That's quite an active schedule. I spent 35 years in courtrooms, Doctor. I'm not ready to spend my remaining years staring at walls." Behind me, Amber's voice was honey sweet. "But Grandma Kate, What about last Tuesday? You called Tyler 3 times asking if he'd seen your phone. You couldn't remember where you'd put it. I turned to look at her. That's because I'd left it in the car. I called Tyler from my landline to ask if he'd noticed it when we had lunch earlier. Once I remembered I'd driven myself instead of getting a ride with my neighbor, I found it immediately. But you called him 3 times, Amber pressed. The first time he didn't answer. The second time the call dropped. The third time we had an actual conversation. I smiled. My memory is fine. My patience with cell phone technology, however, could use work. Dr. Anderson made a note. Tyler, you mentioned your grandmother had been having trouble managing her finances? Yes, he said quickly. She keeps forgetting to pay bills. Her water got shut off last month. That's not accurate, I said calmly. The water company made an error in their billing system. They sent a final notice to an old address I haven't lived at in 15 years. When I called to dispute the shutoff, they admitted the mistake and restored service within an hour. I have the documentation if you'd like to see it. Dr. Anderson looked at Tyler. Do you have examples of other financial mismanagement? Tyler faltered. She gave money to a charity that turned out to be a scam. The Veterans Relief Fund? I raised an eyebrow. That's a legitimate 501c3 organization. I served on their board for 5 years. I'm quite familiar with their work. But Grandma, Amber interjected, you bought a new car last month without telling anyone. That's not normal. I'm 67 years old. I've been buying my own cars since I was 22. I don't require permission or consultation. I kept my voice even, but I could feel the old courtroom steel entering my tone. And I traded in my old Mercedes for a more practical sedan, hardly a sign of incompetence. The evaluation continued for another 30 minutes. Memory tests, cognitive assessments, questions about my emotional state. I answered everything with the same precision I'd used to dismantle testimony. By the end, Dr. Anderson was looking at Tyler and Amber with barely concealed skepticism. Mrs. Morrison, I'm not seeing any signs of cognitive impairment. Your memory is excellent, your reasoning is sound, and you're clearly managing your daily life without difficulty. Tyler's face went red. But I understand you're concerned about your grandmother, Dr. Anderson interrupted. But based on this evaluation, those concerns appear to be unfounded. Amber's hand tightened on Tyler's arm. Maybe she's just having a good day. Sometimes people with dementia can seem normal during appointments. That's true, Dr. Anderson said slowly. But Mrs. Morrison isn't showing any signs of cognitive decline at all. She's actually performing above average for her age group. Thank you, doctor, I said, standing. I appreciate your thoroughness. Tyler, Amber, shall we go? In the parking lot, Tyler grabbed my arm. Grandma, wait, we need to talk. About what, sweetheart? About making things easier for you. Maybe it's time to think about simplifying your finances. I could help manage the trust, take some of the burden off you. There it was, the real reason. I looked at my grandson, at the boy I'd loved since he was born, and felt something crack in my chest. Tyler, do you know what I did for a living? He blinked. You were a lawyer. I was a criminal defense attorney. For 35 years, I stood in front of juries and convinced them that the prosecution's case was built on assumptions and circumstantial evidence. I cross-examined witnesses until their stories fell apart. I found the holes in every argument, the flaws in every theory. Okay, but do you know what I'm good at, Tyler? I'm good at spotting lies. I'm good at investigating. I'm good at building cases. Amber's smile had frozen on her face. Mrs. Morrison, we're just trying to help. Are you, Amber, or are you trying to help yourself? I opened my purse and pulled out a folder. Not the full file. I wasn't ready to show them everything yet, but enough to make a point. Amber Nicole Patterson, 28 years old, originally from Phoenix, Arizona. You moved to Miami 14 months ago, 3 months before you met my grandson at that art gallery opening I paid for him to attend. Her face went pale. You've had 3 relationships with men over 60 in the past 5 years. Lawrence Chen, widower, 72. You dated him for 6 months before he gave you $30,000 for what you called a business venture. The business never materialized. Richard Foster, 75, recently divorced. He added you to his bank accounts after 4 months of dating. You withdrew $22,000 in cash over a 2-month period before he discovered it and you broke up with him. And Walter Hughes, 68, who signed over the deed to his vacation home in Sarasota before his children intervened and threatened legal action. You left town the next day. Amber's mouth opened and closed. Tyler stared at the papers in my hand. You're not targeting elderly men with dementia, I continued. You're targeting lonely people with money and family members who might be willing to question their judgment. You isolate them, make them doubt themselves, and then you either extract money directly or convince their relatives that they need protection that conveniently gives those relatives access to assets they can then share with you. Grandma, Tyler whispered, how did you— I spent 35 years investigating people, Tyler. It's what I do. It's what I'm good at. I tucked the folder back into my purse. I hired a private investigator 2 months ago, as soon as Amber started suggesting I might be losing my mental capacity. It took him 3 weeks to find everything. This is insane, Amber said, her voice shaking. You're paranoid. This is exactly the kind of delusional thinking that— That what? That proves I have dementia? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Sweetheart, I've been accused of worse things by better liars than you. I've been called paranoid by people trying to hide evidence. I've been called delusional by clients who thought I didn't know they were guilty. None of it worked then, and none of it will work now. I turned to Tyler. I love you. You're my grandson, and I promised your mother I'd take care of you, but I won't let you steal from me, even if you've convinced yourself it's for my own good. I wasn't trying to steal. Yes, you were. Maybe Amber convinced you I really was losing my mind. Maybe she made you think you were protecting me. But the end result was going to be you controlling the trust fund and her controlling you. I paused. Or did you really think she loved you for your personality? Amber grabbed her purse. I don't have to listen to this. Tyler, let's go. But Tyler didn't move. He was staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. Grandma, I'm sorry, I didn't. She said you were forgetting things, getting confused, and I believed her because I wanted to believe I was helping you. I know. That's how people like Amber work. They find your good intentions and twist them. I softened slightly. But Tyler, you brought me to a psychiatrist to have me declared incompetent. You were willing to take away my autonomy, my rights, my dignity, based on lies from a woman you've known for 8 months. His eyes filled with tears. I messed up. Yes, you did. Amber was already walking toward her car. Tyler, are you coming or not? He looked at her, then back at me. No, I'm not. She got in her car and peeled out of the parking lot, tires squealing. We watched her go. I'm sorry, Tyler said again. I should have trusted you. Should have asked you directly instead of listening to her. Yes, you should have. I pulled my car keys from my purse. You're 26 years old, Tyler. Old enough to know that when someone tells you what you want to hear, you should question their motives. What happens now? Now? You go home and think about whether you want to be the kind of person who tries to control someone else's life for their own benefit. And I go home and make myself a martini. Are you going to press charges against Amber? I considered it. The attorney in me wanted to see her prosecuted for attempted fraud, but the practical side knew it would be difficult to prove without more evidence. I'm going to send the investigation file to the Phoenix Police Department and the Miami Fraud Division. If they want to pursue it, they will. If not, I shrugged. At least she's gone from your life. And the trust fund? Still yours when you turn 30. Assuming you prove to me over the next 4 years that you're responsible enough to handle it, I gave him a hard look. You have a lot to prove, Tyler. He nodded, miserable. I got in my car and drove home, my hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. Not from fear or confusion, from anger. Anger that my own grandson had thought I was that far gone. Anger that he'd been willing to take away my independence based on the word of a woman he barely knew. But underneath the anger was hurt. And underneath the hurt was the knowledge that Tyler wasn't entirely wrong to worry. I was 67 years old. My husband was dead. My daughter was dead. I lived alone in a house that was too big for one person. Someday, I might actually need help. Someday, I might actually lose my edge. Just not today. I poured myself that martini and sat in my garden, watching the sun set over the Miami skyline. My phone rang. Tyler, probably. I let it go to voicemail, but the next call was different. Unknown number, with a local area code. Mrs. Morrison? This is Judge Patricia Blackwell. I hope I'm not calling too late. I sat up straighter. Judge Blackwell. We'd been in court together dozens of times over the years, though she'd been a prosecutor then. Sharp mind, sharper tongue. She'd made judge 5 years before I retired. Judge Blackwell. Not too late at all. What can I do for you? I heard something interesting today. One of my colleagues was having lunch at the cafe next to Dr. Anderson's office. They saw you leaving with a young man and woman who looked upset. I smiled despite myself. The legal community in Miami was a small world. News travels fast. It does when the hammer is spotted in a psychiatrist's office. People talk. She paused. Are you all right, Catherine? I'm fine. It was. A family matter. A family matter that required a competency evaluation? I sighed. My grandson thought I needed one. He was mistaken. I see. Another pause. Catherine, if someone is trying to challenge your competency for financial gain, that's elder abuse. That's prosecutable. I know what it is, Patricia. I've handled cases like it. Then you know you should fight back. Hard. I am fighting back. In my own way. I swirled my martini. I'm handling it. The hammer's handling it, she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. God help whoever tried to come after you. They didn't succeed. Of course they didn't. You're still sharper than most people half your age. She hesitated. But Catherine, if you need help, legal help, personal help, anything you call me. Understood? Understood. Thank you, Patricia. After we hung up, I sat in the gathering darkness and thought about what she'd said. The hammer. That nickname had followed me through my entire career. I'd been proud of it once. Proud of being known as someone who couldn't be broken or deterred. But it had also made me lonely. People saw the hammer and forgot to see Catherine. They saw the attorney who never lost and forgot to see the woman who'd raised a daughter and loved a husband and made a damn good lemon meringue pie. Maybe that's why Tyler had found it so easy to believe I was losing my mind, because he'd never really known who I was beyond Grandma Kate who pays for things. My phone buzzed. A text from Tyler. I'm sorry. I love you. Please give me a chance to make this right. I typed back, actions, not words. Show me who you really are. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. I will. I promise. I finished my martini and went inside. Tomorrow I'd call the private investigator and have him send the full report on Amber to the appropriate authorities. Tomorrow I'd call my financial advisor and make sure all my accounts had additional security measures. Tomorrow I'd update my will to include provisions that would make it much harder for anyone to claim incompetence without significant medical evidence. But tonight, I was just a 67-year-old woman who'd outsmarted someone trying to take advantage of her. A woman who still had her edge, her mind, her instincts. They'd called me the Hammer because I could drive a point home with absolute precision. And today I'd proven that the hammer hadn't lost its swing. 3 weeks later, I got a call from the Miami Fraud Division. They'd arrested Amber Patterson on charges of attempted exploitation of an elderly person. Turned out that when they'd served the warrant to search her apartment, they'd found files on 3 other potential targets, all wealthy people over 65, all recently widowed or divorced. The detective who called me sounded almost gleeful. Mrs. Morrison, I have to ask, did you really figure all this out on your own? I had help from a private investigator. But yes, I did the analysis myself. You should have been a detective. I was a defense attorney. Same skill set, different application. Well, you nailed this one. The evidence you provided was airtight. We've got her on multiple counts. Good. And Mrs. Morrison? Your grandson came to the station yesterday. He gave a statement about how she manipulated him. He's cooperating fully. I closed my eyes. Thank you for telling me. Tyler called that evening. Grandma, the police told me you're the one who put all the evidence together. They said without your investigation, they wouldn't have had a case. I protected myself. And you. I don't deserve your protection. No, I agreed. You don't. But you're going to earn it back. How? Start by volunteering at the legal aid clinic with me. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9 to 3. You want to understand what I did for 35 years? Come see it. I'll be there Tuesday." And he was. Tyler showed up at the clinic wearing a button-down shirt and slacks, looking nervous. I put him to work, filing paperwork, making copies, greeting clients. He watched me interview a young mother who couldn't afford a custody lawyer. He listened as I explained to an elderly veteran how to fight a fraudulent medical bill. He saw me do what I'd done for decades, use my knowledge and experience to help people who had nowhere else to turn. "At the end of the day," he said, "you were amazing. I was adequate. There's a difference. Grandma, why didn't you ever talk about this? About what you did? You never asked." I locked the clinic door behind us. "You saw the house, the car, the trust fund. You never saw the work. I'm sorry. Stop apologizing and start paying attention. That's how you make it right." Over the next few months, Tyler kept showing up at the clinic. He enrolled in paralegal classes at the community college. He broke things off completely with Amber, even agreeing to testify at her trial if needed. He started asking me questions about my cases, my career, my life before he was born. He was trying. Really trying. One evening, 6 months after the incident at Dr. Anderson's office, Tyler and I sat on my back patio. He'd brought Chinese takeout and we were eating directly from the containers like we used to when he was in college. "Grandma, can I ask you something? Were you scared? When Amber and I were trying to have you declared incompetent?" I considered the question. Not scared. Angry. Disappointed. But not scared. Why not? Because I knew I wasn't incompetent. I knew I had the skills to fight back. And I knew that even if you'd succeeded in having me declared incompetent, I would have appealed, hired the best attorneys in Miami, and overturned it within a month. I set down my Lomain. But the fact that I would have had to do that? The fact that you believed I needed to be managed like a child? That hurt. He looked down at his hands. "I see that now. I see you now." "Do you? Do you see the person who built a career on careful observation and strategic thinking? Do you see someone who's still capable of making her own decisions?" "I do. I really do." He met my eyes, and I see someone I want to be like, someone who fights for people who can't fight for themselves. I felt something warm bloom in my chest. Pride, maybe. Or hope. "Then keep coming to the clinic. Keep learning. Keep paying attention." I paused. "And when you turn 30 and take over the trust, use it wisely. Use it the way your mother would have wanted. The way your grandmother expects?" "I will. I promise." This time, I believed him. 2 years later, Tyler finished his paralegal certification and got a job at a non-profit legal organization. He moved out of his expensive apartment and into a modest one-bedroom so he could donate more of his salary to the legal aid clinic. He dated occasionally, but after Amber, he was cautious, careful, smart. On his 28th birthday, he brought me a gift. A framed photo of the two of us at the clinic, taken by one of the staff members. In it, I was showing him how to organize case files, and we were both smiling. "To the woman who taught me what really matters," the inscription read. "Love, your grandson." I hung it in my living room, next to my law degree and the photo of my late husband. They used to call me the Hammer because I could drive a point home with absolute precision. I'd spent 35 years proving that in courtrooms across Miami. But the point I'd driven home with Tyler, the point about respect, about seeing people for who they really are, about understanding that age doesn't equal incompetence, that might have been the most important closing argument of my entire career. And just like in court, I'd won by being prepared, being smart, and refusing to let anyone underestimate me. Because the thing about hammers, they don't get dull with age, they just get more precise with every swing.